Well, Devin Booker touched on it. He is one of the greatest players of all time, regardless, but this is massive. Because the best players to never make the finals, now that Chris Paul is off the list, it's great players. Melo's on there, George Gervin is on there, Steve Nash is on there, Dominique Wilkins is on there. Those are probably the four best to never make the finals. Chris Paul's better than all of them and should not have been on that list. Now, there's a lot of all-time greats who have never won a championship that are right in line with Chris Paul. He might move himself off of that list here in a couple of weeks. But for him not only to make the finals, but do it the way he did it, for me, as a Chris Paul fan, was just perfect. Because you're going to hear today, that's the most points in a half Chris Paul has ever scored in a basketball game. The 31 in the second half to put his team in the NBA Finals. And that's almost true. The only time he's actually scored more points in a half was in high school when he said before the game, I'm going to score 61 for his grandfather who had just tragically been killed at the age of 61, and did exactly that. And the reason I bring that up is that happened 19 years ago. This game happened last night. And he has always had these scoring explosions accessible to him. He rarely has gone to them because it has not been typically the best way for his team to win. And that, Brandon, is the definition of a point guard. Not the guy who can score the most points, not the guy who can put up the biggest numbers, but the guy who can understand, what does my team need to win tonight? Oh, my big man, we're going to need him on defense. I better get him some touches. Oh, Jay Crowder, we're going to need him to hit some threes. Let me get him rolling. Whatever your team needs is what you do. That's what a point guard is. That's what Magic was. That's what Isaiah was. That's what Chris Paul is. And seeing him do it last night and put his team on his back to blow out the Clippers was spectacular. And I couldn't be happier for him. And it does stamp him, as Devin Booker said.
Right. Listen, and it's hard for me to follow up with what you just said. I got goosebumps listening to you talk about his grandfather. I think I saw that story years ago. Someone was doing a feature piece on him, and that was touching. But to hear you talk about it and go back and say 19 years ago, he said he was going to do this. And this game happened last night, a game where he had to be aggressive if he wanted to eliminate these boys. So, you know, for me, it's about the moment. Right now, CP3, all he's doing is changing the narrative, right? We're going to hear more stories like the one we just heard from Nick Wright. That's what's going to happen. That's the amazing thing about basketball. My father used to always tell me, he said, son, it just takes one play. It could take one moment, and it totally changes everything. 4 years in college, 3 years, nobody knew who I was. Nobody would throw me the ball. And then there was one play that turned into one season that turned to a 13-year NFL career. So now you see CP3, someone who we know is a great, but you're talking about 16 years, ups and downs, you know, triumph and falls in the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, boom, he has this breakthrough. And now this is what we're talking about. This is the narrative of a CP3, because there isn't one player that sets out and says, you know what, I'm going to make it to the NBA and my only goal is to make it to the finals. No, they want to win. That's what these guys want, especially greats like that. You know, there may be some players that's like, you know what, I'm just happy just to be here. I'm just happy just to get a jersey. CP3, the LeBron James of the world, no, these guys are talking about winning titles and multiple times. I guarantee you CP3's thinking like, all right, finally. But I set out to have 2 or 3 of these bad boys. So I just absolutely love you know, sharing this moment on television with CP3, being able to talk about it, because these are the moments we want. Wiles, we want to talk about the good stories, and CP3 did it, and also his boys alongside of him.
Yeah, when you talk about sort of the joy of the moment, I want to show you a video, and it might seem like a silly thing, it may seem like an anecdotal thing. I think it tells the story of Chris Paul's career. And it's a video of him hugging Lil Wayne And then he goes over and he also hugs Billy Crystal. So here's Lil Wayne, obviously. He's got a new haircut. And then he goes over and he hugs Billy Crystal and his wife. And I saw this, Nick, and I said, this is a beautiful moment. There's a joy in him making it to the finals. And these guys have been there with him the whole time, right? And I think everybody, no matter where you are in this country, no matter who you are, you can find a bit of yourself in Chris Paul. So if you're from the Carolinas, Chris Paul's from the Carolinas.
That's right.
He wore a Winston-Salem hat after the game. He went to Wake Forest. If you're from if you're from New Orleans, like Lil Wayne, he sort of like was your first major superstar, helped put you guys on the map. And then if you're from LA, Lob City, and I thought it was horrible that the Clippers fans were booing. I thought it was pathetic. You should have stood up and give that guy a standing ovation for what he did. You wouldn't have Kawhi. You wouldn't have Paul George. You were the Sacramento Kings before Lob City showed up. And including Lakers fans. Lakers fans, find a reason to root for Chris Paul because that rivalry, although it's like not a real rivalry, it does make basketball more interesting. If you're from Houston, he's put some time in there. If you're from Oklahoma City, thought you guys were tanking? Nope, you were making it to the playoffs. And obviously, if you're from Phoenix, if you're tall, you can be like, you know what? Chris Paul's actually tall. If you're short, he's short.
Let me ask you a
If
question.
you're a nice guy, Chris Paul's a nice guy. If he's a mean guy, Chris Paul can be a little bit mean. No matter who you are, Brandon, you can find a reason to root for Chris Paul.
It's great.
That's great. Wow.
Well, something came up as you was going through that. Let me ask you a question. What's his legacy with the Phoenix Suns? He's only been there 10 months? I mean, does this guy get a statue now? What's his legacy in Phoenix?
He gets his jersey retired.
If he wins,
he gets his jersey retired
retire
for
his
sure.
number. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he gets his jersey retired. Rex Chapman tweeted last night, because Rex Chapman wore number 3. He goes, my jersey's finally going to hang in the Suns rafters, except it's going to have Chris Paul's name on it now.
That's great.
And he's right. Like, that is what's going to happen. And the other part that is so satisfying is, so the two oldest great players in the league right now are LeBron and Chris Paul. They're both 36. And LeBron lays into this washed king, no one believed in me type of thing, and I play into it sometimes too. But it's obvious nonsense. Like, no one ever thought LeBron was washed. Guys, people did think it was over for Chris Paul. Tillman Fertitta said, this is the worst contract I have ever seen in sports or business, and they attached 4 first-round picks to get rid of him. Then Oklahoma City traded him when he was like, he had a good year. All they got back was Kelly Oubre. There's one other player I'm forgetting. I apologize. Kelly Oubre, a first-round pick, and Rubio. Rubio's the other guy. Like Chris Paul, Wild said 10 months ago and 22 months ago was considered okay. Like, yeah, he'll help you, but, his time has passed. And now he is the overwhelming favorite to be finals MVP, the overwhelming favorite to be a champion, and had 35-plus points to knock out and sweep the MVP in Jokic, and had one of the finest games of his life last night to make the finals. It's perfect. It makes me so happy, Jenna.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.